The phone screamed through Kong Min's penthouse at 2:15 a.m., ripping him from dreams he'd never admit to having. Dreams where she still wore his ring, still laughed at his terrible jokes, still existed in his world instead of being a ghost haunting every empty room. Mr. Kong. The nurse's voice trembled. Mercy General Hospital. Your wife. Ex-wife, he corrected automatically, but his heart was already thundering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. She's in active labor. Emergency situation. The baby's in distress. She's asking for you. The world stopped. Baby. Baby? Kong Min's hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped through his fingers as his brain short-circuited completely. 8 months. Natasha had been gone for 8 months, 17 days, and approximately 6 hours. Not that he was counting, not that he'd memorized the exact moment she'd removed her wedding ring and placed it on his desk without a single word. But pregnant? His child? Sir? Mr. Kong, are you? He was already moving, grabbing his keys with shaking hands, his carefully constructed composure, the mask that made grown men confess their sins and beg for mercy, completely obliterated. The drive to Mercy General blurred into streaks of red taillights and his own ragged breathing. His mind raced backwards, calculating obsessively. 8 months since she left, which meant she'd been pregnant when she walked out. She'd known. She'd known and hadn't told him. The betrayal burned, but underneath it, terror clawed at his throat with razor-sharp talons. What if something happened to her? What if he never got the chance to? To what, Min? To explain? To grovel? To tell her that every single day without her has been like breathing underwater? He abandoned his Mercedes in a loading zone, security be damned, and sprinted through the hospital's automatic doors. His Armani suit was wrinkled for the first time in his adult life. His hair, usually perfectly styled, fell across his forehead in dark, disheveled strands. Natasha Billy, he gasped at the reception desk, his voice cracking on her name, her maiden name, the one she'd reclaimed when she erased him from her life. Labor and delivery. Emergency. The receptionist's eyes widened, recognizing him instantly. Everyone in Seoul knew Kong Min's face, even if they pretended not to. 4th floor, room 427. But sir, only immediate family. I'm her husband. The words escaped before he could stop them, raw and desperate and technically a lie. She hesitated, then nodded, perhaps sensing that this dangerous man was currently no threat to anyone except himself. Kong Min's legs felt like lead as he stumbled into the elevator. His reflection in the polished steel doors showed a stranger, eyes wild with panic, jaw clenched so tight it ached, hands trembling violently. He'd faced down rival gangs. He'd negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching. He'd killed men who'd betrayed him and slept soundly afterward. But the thought of Natasha in pain, of losing her, of never getting to tell her that she was the only thing in his corrupt world that had ever been real, that terror brought the king of Seoul's underworld to his knees. The elevator doors opened. A scream pierced through the sterile hallway. Her scream, Natasha's voice breaking with agony, and Kong Min's world shattered completely. He ran. Room 427's door stood partially open. Through the gap, he could see her, his Natasha, his wife, drenched in sweat, face contorted in pain, one hand gripping the bed rail while nurses moved frantically around her. Emergency C-section. Someone was saying urgently. Fetal distress. We need to move now. Natasha's eyes, those warm brown eyes that used to look at him like he was something more than a monster, suddenly found his through the doorway. For one suspended heartbeat, time stopped completely. Her lips formed his name. Not Kong Min with professional distance. Not Mr. Kong with cold formality. Just Min. The way she used to whisper it in the darkness, the way she'd breathed it against his neck, the way she'd said it that last morning before everything imploded. And then they were wheeling her away, and he was following, and nothing else in the entire world mattered except the woman who'd left him and the child he'd never known existed, both of them slipping through his fingers like smoke, like dreams, like every chance at redemption he'd ever had. 3 years earlier. The lunch rush at the Dragon Inn was absolute chaos. Natasha balanced 3 steaming bowls of galbijim on a tray, her box braids tied back with a kitchen towel, sweat beading on her forehead as she navigated the narrow corridor between the kitchen and the private dining rooms. She'd been in Seoul for exactly 2 months, her culinary degree from Lagos burning a hole in her pocket and her bank account crying for mercy. The Dragon Inn wasn't her dream job, it was survival, a stepping stone until she could afford to open her own fusion restaurant. Move, move. Another server shouted behind her. Natasha pivoted quickly, her hip bumping the swinging door just as it flew open from the other side. Time slowed to a horrifying crawl. The man emerging from the private room was a vision in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, his face all sharp angles and dangerous beauty, high cheekbones, intense dark eyes, lips that looked like they'd forgotten how to smile years ago. His presence commanded the entire hallway, sucking up all the oxygen. And Natasha crashed directly into him. The galbijim erupted like a culinary volcano. Rich, dark broth splattered across his pristine suit jacket, chunks of braised short ribs sliding down his shirt, soup cascading onto his obviously expensive Italian leather shoes. The hallway went silent. Every server, every staff member within eyesight froze completely, their faces pale with terror. Natasha's stomach dropped to her feet. She didn't know who this man was, but the way everyone reacted told her everything she needed to know. Someone important. Someone powerful. Someone who could destroy her life with a single word. "Oh God," she whispered, grabbing napkins frantically. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see the door. You came out so fast." She was babbling, her Nigerian accent thickening with panic as she tried desperately to blot the soup from his ruined suit. The man stood completely still, staring down at her with an expression she couldn't read. Behind him, 2 men in black suits materialized, bodyguards, she realized with growing dread, their hands moving toward concealed weapons. This was how she died. Killed over soup in a Korean restaurant. Her mother would never forgive her for such an undignified exit. But then the man spoke, his voice surprisingly soft, almost amused. "Stop." Natasha froze, napkin pressed against his chest, close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her traitorous heart skip. "Look at me," he commanded quietly. She forced her eyes upward, meeting his gaze directly. Most people would cower. Most people would grovel. But Natasha Billy had never been good at playing small, even when terrified. "I'm genuinely sorry," she said firmly, lifting her chin. "It was an accident. A stupid, clumsy accident. Fire me if you need to, but I'm not going to grovel. I'm a chef, not a servant." Something shifted in his expression. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. A chef. His eyes scanned her face like he was memorizing every feature. "What's your name?" "Natasha Billy." She refused to look away, even as her knees trembled. "And you are?" Behind him, someone gasped audibly at her audacity. Now he definitely almost smiled. "Kong Min. I own this restaurant. Among other things." "Oh. Oh no." Her brain supplied the rumors she'd heard whispered in the kitchen. The Dragon Inn was a front, a legitimate business hiding something far more dangerous. The owner was some kind of crime boss, someone with connections to everything Dark Soul had to offer. And she'd just dumped soup all over him. "Well, Mr. Kong Min," she said, somehow keeping her voice steady, "I promise I'm usually much better at not assaulting my employers with food. Today's just been special." He stared at her for another long moment, then did something that made everyone in the hallway question reality. He laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh that transformed his entire face, erasing years of hardness and revealing someone unexpectedly human. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish," he said finally. "I haven't decided which. Can't I be both?" Natasha shot back before her brain could stop her mouth. His eyes darkened with something that made her stomach flip. "Come to my office tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock sharp." "To fire me personally?" she asked, trying for humor despite her racing heart. "To offer you a different position." He stepped closer, towering over her, his voice dropping to something intimate and dangerous. I need a personal chef. Someone who can cook authentic fusion cuisine. Someone who isn't afraid to speak their mind. Natasha's breath caught. A personal chef? For you? Yes. His gaze pinned her in place. But I should warn you, I'm not an easy man to work for. I have complicated business dealings. I'll never ask you to do anything illegal, and I'll never lie to you. But my world is dangerous, Natasha Billy. If you accept, you need to understand what you're stepping into. Her practical side screamed at her to refuse, to run far away from this beautiful, dangerous man who looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. But Natasha had never been good at taking the safe path. Will the pay cover my student loans? She asked instead. His lips curved into a real smile this time, devastating and genuine. I'll cover your student loans entirely, plus a salary that'll make you forget you ever worried about money.
She should say no.
Every instinct warned her that Kong Min was trouble wrapped in Armani, the kind of man who could ruin her life or change it completely. 9 o'clock, she heard herself say. I'll be there. Good. He moved past her, then paused, glancing back over his shoulder. And, Natasha? Wear something nice. But keep the braids. They suit you. He disappeared into the private room, leaving her standing in the hallway, covered in soup, heart pounding, knowing with absolute certainty that her life had just changed forever. Behind her, one of the servers whispered urgently, Girl, do you have any idea what you just agreed to? Natasha touched her racing pulse, remembering the intensity in Kong Min's eyes. Not even a little bit, she whispered back. But somehow, that made her want to show up at 9 o'clock even more. Natasha fell in love with Kong Min in stages, like stepping into the ocean, first her toes, then her ankles, then suddenly she was drowning and didn't even care. It started with breakfast. Every morning at 7, she'd arrive at his penthouse and cook. Not Korean food, he had a dozen people who could make him bibimbap. No, he wanted her food. Jollof rice with a Korean twist. Pepper soup infused with gochugaru. Plantains caramelized with gochujang honey. This, he'd say, closing his eyes with each bite, is what heaven tastes like. She'd laugh, watching this dangerous man, this crime lord who made senators nervous, completely undone by her cooking. But it wasn't just the food. It was the conversations that stretched long after the dishes were cleared. The way he'd ask about Lagos, about her dreams, about the fusion restaurant she wanted to open someday. The way he actually listened, his dark eyes tracking every word like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. You're not what I expected, she admitted one morning, 3 months in. He'd looked up from his coffee, eyebrow raised. What did you expect? A monster. She said it honestly, without apology. Someone cold. Ruthless. I am cold. I am ruthless. His voice was matter-of-fact. I've done terrible things, Natasha. I'll probably do more. But with you? Something vulnerable flickered across his face. With you, I want to be just Min. Not the kingpin. Not the boss. Just me. That was when she knew she was in trouble. The real trouble came at 5 months, when he took her to the orphanage. This is where I grew up, he said quietly, watching children play in the courtyard. His hand found hers naturally, fingers intertwining. Everything I earn, 30% comes here. New beds, education, food that isn't garbage. Nobody knows. If they did, rivals would use it against me. Natasha's throat tightened. Why are you telling me? He turned to her, his expression raw and unguarded. Because I don't want secrets between us. Because you see me, Natasha. The real me. And I need you to know. I'm not just the monster. I'm also the boy who remembers what it feels like to be forgotten. She kissed him then, in the orphanage courtyard, pouring every complicated emotion into it. He proposed at 6 months, no ring, no fancy setup. Just the two of them in his kitchen at midnight, her hands covered in flour from making chin-chin, his tie loosened after a business meeting she knew better than to ask about. Marry me, he said suddenly. She froze, dough forgotten. What? Marry me. He moved closer, cupping her face with hands that had done violent things but touched her like she was made of glass. I know it's fast. I know I'm dangerous. But Natasha, you're the only real thing in my life. The only person who doesn't want something from me. You just want me. You're insane, she whispered, but her heart was already saying yes. Completely. He smiled against her lips. Is that a yes? It's a yes. They married quietly at City Hall, no family, no spectacle. Just them, two witnesses, and vows that felt more sacred than any cathedral could make them. The first year of marriage was bliss wrapped in complexity. She learned to live with his late nights, his dangerous phone calls, the moments when his eyes went cold and distant. He learned to come home to her cooking, to laugh at her terrible Korean pronunciation, to sleep soundly with her braids tickling his face. You domesticated the wolf, his second-in-command joked once. But Kang Min just smiled, pulling Natasha closer. She didn't domesticate me. She gave me something worth being human for. Then came the day everything shattered. Natasha arrived at his office unannounced, carrying lunch she'd made, his favorite pepper soup. The door was cracked open. Voices drifted out. A woman's voice. Young, sweet, calculatedly innocent. Appa, our families agreed. You promised my father. Natasha's hand froze on the doorknob. Through the gap, she saw them. Kang Min behind his desk, expression tight. And her, delicate, beautiful, wearing a designer hanbok. Lily Park, daughter of the Busan syndicate head. That arrangement ended when I married Natasha, Kang Min said firmly. But father says. I don't care what your father says. His voice turned to ice. I called off the engagement 2 years ago, before I even met my wife. Tell him the merger can happen another way, or not at all. Lily's expression hardened. You'd risk war over some foreign chef? The soup container slipped from Natasha's numb fingers, crashing to the floor. Both heads whipped toward the door. Kang Min's face went pale. Natasha. But she was already backing away, her heart splintering into pieces. You were engaged? Her voice came out broken, barely a whisper. He moved toward her desperately. It was arranged by our fathers when I was 22. I refused. I told them no before I ever met you. But you never told me. Tears burned her eyes. A year, Min. We've been married a year, and you never mentioned that some woman thinks she has a claim to you. Because it didn't matter. He reached for her, but she flinched away. Natasha, please. What else haven't you told me? Her voice cracked. What other secrets are hiding in your world? What other threats are coming for us? Nothing. I swear. Your swearing means nothing now. She was shouting, crying, her accent thick with anguish. You promised no lies. You promised. I didn't lie. He ran hands through his hair, desperate. I didn't want you to worry. I'd already handled it. By keeping secrets. She yanked off her wedding ring, her hands shaking violently. This isn't a marriage, Min. It's me living in your shadow, never knowing what's real. She placed the ring on his desk with devastating finality. Natasha, don't. His voice broke completely, the powerful crime lord reduced to a begging man. Lily's father will want revenge for your refusal. You'll have to fight. People will die. She met his eyes, her own overflowing. I can't watch you destroy yourself over me. And I can't bring children into this violence. We'll figure it out together.
No.
She backed toward the door. I'm done, Min. I'm filing for divorce. Please. He moved toward her, but stopped when she held up her hand. Don't follow me. Don't call. Just let me go. She walked out, leaving the ring, the life, the love, leaving him standing in his office, completely shattered. What Natasha didn't tell him, what she couldn't tell him as she packed her bags and disappeared into Seoul's crowded streets, was the secret she discovered just that morning. The positive pregnancy test hidden in her purse. 8 months later. Natasha's water broke during the third act of a terrible rom-com she wasn't even watching, her mind miles away, always circling back to him, to the husband she'd left, to the choice she'd made that felt more wrong with each passing day. The pain hit like a sledgehammer. Too early. The baby wasn't due for another month. Her hands trembled as she grabbed her phone, scrolling past his name. Min, still in her contacts, still breaking her heart every time she saw it. She should call her friend Ada. She should call a taxi. She should call anyone except. Another contraction ripped through her, so violent she collapsed to her knees, gasping. The baby. Terror obliterated pride. Her fingers moved without permission, hitting his name, the phone ringing once, twice. Natasha. His voice came through rough, desperate, like he'd been waiting 8 months for this exact call. Natasha, where are you? Are you okay? Hospital, she gasped between contractions. Mercy, General. The baby, Min. Something's wrong. The line went dead. She barely remembered the ambulance ride, the fluorescent lights streaking past, the nurses' urgent voices blurring into white noise. All she could think was, please, please, let my baby be okay, and I should have told him from the beginning. They wheeled her into room 427. The pain was everywhere now, consuming, relentless. Monitors beeped frantically. A doctor's face swam into view, speaking words that sounded like they were underwater. Fetal distress, emergency C-section, need to move now. No, Natasha sobbed, gripping the bed rail. Wait, please wait. And then she saw him. Min stood in the doorway, looking like he'd fought his way through hell to get there. His usually perfect hair was wild, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. He looked exactly how she felt, completely destroyed and barely holding together. Min, she breathed, his name a prayer and an apology. He was across the room in 3 strides, his hand finding hers, gripping like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. I'm here. I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sorry, she gasped as they started wheeling her towards surgery. I should have told you, should have trusted you. Sure. He walked beside the gurney, never letting go, his thumb stroking her knuckles. We'll talk later.
Right now, you just focus on our baby.
Our daughter. How did you? I've known for 4 months. His voice cracked. I've had people watching you, making sure you were safe. I saw you at the prenatal clinic. He pressed his forehead to her hand. I wanted to respect your space, but Natasha, it's been killing me. Every day, without you has been hell. The surgical doors loomed ahead. Sir, you need to scrub in if you're coming, a nurse said urgently. I'm coming. He looked at Natasha with everything he'd never been able to say written on his face. I'm right here. I'm not leaving you. Never again. They gave him scrubs. He held her hand through the spinal block, through the draping, through every terrifying moment when the doctors worked behind the surgical curtain and Natasha couldn't feel anything below her chest. Talk to me, she whispered, needing his voice to ground her. I destroyed them. His words came quiet, fierce. The Parks. Their businesses, their connections, everything. After you left, I made sure no one would ever threaten us again. Lily's father declared bankruptcy last month. She's married off to some businessman in Busan now, far away from us. Min, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. He kissed her knuckles, his eyes blazing. You're my wife, Natasha. Ring or no ring, you're mine. And I protect what's mine. I left you, she whispered, tears streaming. You came back. His voice broke. You called me. That's all that matters. The doctor's voice cut through. Almost there, okay, here we go. A thin, reedy cry filled the operating room. Time stopped. It's a girl, the doctor announced, holding up a tiny, squirming bundle covered in vernix and blood and absolutely perfect. A beautiful baby girl. Min made a sound Natasha had never heard before, a sob, raw and unguarded, everything he'd held back for 6 months pouring out. Tears streamed down his face unabashedly as they placed their daughter on Natasha's chest. Oh my God, Natasha breathed, staring at the tiny face, the shock of dark hair, the miniature fingers already grasping. Min, look at her. Look at her. She's perfect. He touched their daughter's head with shaking fingers, his voice wrecked. She's absolutely perfect. just like her mother. I named her, Natasha whispered. In my head, I've been calling her Lia. Lia Min Kong.
Lia.
He tested the name, then smiled through his tears. It's beautiful. She's beautiful. He looked at Natasha, his expression vulnerable and fierce and desperately in love. And I forgive you. For the secret, for leaving, for everything. I forgive you completely. Natasha's tears fell faster. I don't deserve. Yes, you do. He kissed her forehead, lingering. We both made mistakes, baby. I kept secrets because I was scared of losing you. You ran because you were scared of my world. But we're done running now. Done hiding. Done with secrets. They wheeled Natasha to recovery, Kong Min never leaving her side, Lia sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. And as Natasha watched this dangerous man, this crime lord who'd killed without hesitation, gently stroke their daughter's tiny hand with infinite tenderness, she understood something profound. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other, even after everything shattered. Especially then. I want to try again, she whispered.
For real this time.
No secrets. No running. Kong Min's eyes met hers, blazing with promise. No secrets. No running. Just us, building something real. Something clean.
He paused.
I'm stepping back from the organization. My brother will take over operations. You and Lia, you're my only priority now. Min, you don't have to. Yes, I do. He cupped her face gently. Because I choose you, Natasha. I choose this family. I choose being the man Lia needs, the husband you deserve. I choose us over everything. And there, in a hospital room at 4:47 a.m., with their daughter sleeping between them, they chose each other again. This time forever. 2 years later. The mansion sat on the outskirts of Seoul, all glass walls and garden views, the kind of place that whispered money without shouting it. Natasha stood in the kitchen, her kitchen, hands covered in flour as she kneaded dough for Lia's second birthday cake. Through the window, she could see them. Kong Min crouched on the grass, his expensive slacks forgotten as their daughter toddled toward him, giggling wildly, her box braids, styled exactly like her mother's, bouncing with each unsteady step. Come on, baby girl, he coaxed, arms outstretched. Come to Appa. Lia squealed and launched herself forward, crashing into his chest. He caught her effortlessly, spinning her around as she shrieked with delight, her laughter carrying through the open windows like music. Natasha's hand moved unconsciously to her belly, 6 months swollen with their second child, a boy this time, and felt her heart expand impossibly wider. This was what healing looked like. The past 2 years hadn't been easy. There were nights when Kong Min woke up gasping, nightmares of his old life clawing at him. Days when Natasha struggled with trust, when old fears whispered that he'd slip back into the darkness. Moments when they'd fought, voices raised, saying things they regretted. But they'd stayed. They'd fought for each other instead of against each other. They'd kept their promise. No secrets, no running. Mama. Lia spotted her through the window and wriggled free from Kong Min's arms, racing toward the house on chubby toddler legs. Natasha wiped her hands quickly, moving to the door just as Lia burst through, arms up demanding to be held. Hey, my sweet girl. She bent awkwardly around her belly, scooping Lia up. Did you wear App out already? Cake. Lia asked hopefully, eyeing the batter. Tomorrow, baby. For your birthday party. Kong Min appeared in the doorway, grass stains on his knees, his hair adorably mussed. The dangerous crime lord was long gone, replaced by this man, softer, lighter, present in ways that still amazed her. He'd kept his word. His younger brother Min Jae now ran the organization's legitimate businesses, the restaurants, the real estate, the investments, while Kong Min had walked away from everything illegal. It hadn't been easy. There'd been threats, challenges, people who thought he'd gone soft. But nobody dared challenge him seriously. Not after what he'd done to the parks. The legend of his ruthlessness still protected them, even in his absence. You're supposed to be resting, He chided gently, moving to take Leah from her arms. Doctor's orders. I'm pregnant, not broken. But she let him take their daughter, grateful for the relief on her back. He set Leah down with her toys, then pulled Natasha close, his hands settling on her belly, where their son kicked actively. He's feisty today. Takes after his father. She smiled up at him. Stubborn, demanding, thinks he owns the place. Definitely takes after his father then. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips, soft and sweet and tasting like home. I love you. I know. She grinned. You tell me approximately 40 times a day. Not enough. His expression turned serious, vulnerable in the way that still undid her completely. I'll never say it enough, Natasha. You saved me. From myself, from that life, from becoming the monster I was afraid I'd be. We saved each other, she corrected softly, touching his face. I was drowning in loneliness before you. You taught me I was worth loving, worth fighting for. The doorbell chimed, interrupting the moment. That's probably Min-jae, Kong Min said, checking his watch. He's bringing the decorations for tomorrow. But it wasn't just Min-jae. It was Min-jae plus his girlfriend Soo-jin, plus 3 of Kong Min's former crew members who'd transitioned into legitimate work, plus Ada, Natasha's best friend who'd flown in from Lagos, all carrying boxes, balloons, and enough party supplies to celebrate Leah's birthday. The mansion filled with noise, with laughter, with people who'd become family. They cooked together, Natasha directing operations while sitting, because Kong Min refused to let her stand too long, Min-jae arguing with Ada about the proper way to season meat, Leah helping by stealing tastes and making everyone laugh. Later, after everyone left and Leah was tucked into bed, Natasha and Kong Min stood on their bedroom balcony, his arms wrapped around her from behind, both watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. Do you miss it? She asked quietly. The power, the control, the empire? He was silent for a long moment, then shook his head against her hair. Not even a little bit. That life was empty, baby.
Cold.
I had everything and nothing. He turned her gently to face him. Now I have you.
Leah.
Our son coming soon. This home. This peace. This is wealth. This is power. Everything else was just noise. Tears pricked her eyes. The hormones made her cry at everything these days, but this was different. This was gratitude for second chances, for choosing love over fear, for building something beautiful from the ashes of what they'd broken. We're going to renew our vows, he said suddenly. After our son is born. A real ceremony this time. Your mother flying in from Lagos, proper traditional wedding, everything we didn't have the first time. Min. I want to marry you again, he interrupted firmly. Every single day, I want to choose you again. But I also want the world to see it. Want Leah to remember her parents' wedding when she's older. Want our son to know from the beginning that his parents' love is unshakable. She kissed him then, pouring everything into it. Gratitude, passion, promise forever. When they broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. No more secrets? No more secrets, she confirmed. No more running? No more running. Just us. Just us, she whispered. Building forever, one day at a time. Inside, Leah called out sleepily. Mama? Appa? They went to her together, Kong Min scooping their daughter up as she murmured about dreams, Natasha stroking her braids gently. They tucked her back in, singing softly until she drifted off again. And as they returned to their own bed, curled together with their son moving between them, Natasha understood something profound. This was the happy ending she'd stopped believing in. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth every struggle. They'd walked through fire and come out forged stronger. They'd betrayed and forgiven. They'd broken and healed. And now, finally, they were building the life they'd both always deserved. Messy, complicated, beautiful, and completely, utterly theirs. Forever started now. 5 years later, at Leah's school concert, Natasha, now running her successful fusion restaurant, watched Kang Min video every second of their daughter's performance while their son tugged his sleeve impatiently and their newborn twin girls slept in their stroller. He caught her eye across the auditorium and mouthed, "I love you." She mouthed it back, knowing that every hard choice, every moment of fear, every act of forgiveness had led them here.
To this.
To forever. Now, here's where I need your help, beautiful souls. If this story touched your heart, if Kang Min and Natasha's second chance made you believe in love again, please hit that like button right now. Your likes tell me you want more stories like this. Stories that make you feel, that give you hope, that remind you love is worth fighting for. Subscribe to Mina Korean Stories and join our family of romance lovers who believe in second chances, fierce love, and happy endings. Turn on your notifications so you never miss our next captivating tale. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you believe in second chances? Have you ever walked away from love and wondered, what if? Or maybe Kang Min and Natasha's story reminded you of your own journey. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire the tales I bring to you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for love. I'll see you in the next story.